Oh, hello. Are we on? I think we're on. How we do? Good evening. Well, good day. Good day indeed. There's quite a lot going on in your Oz that doesn't get reported at the moment. You've got 13 QCs and another fella. So that's your 13 and 1, which I'm not sure what to make of that. Spread down to 5. And they're going against the proposed bill being put through by Parliament, which would basically kill your democratic system. So that's going on. There's still protests going on over there in Oz that doesn't get reported. Switzerland, ever so civilized, they've been camping out on the streets, having the picnics in front of the restaurants that won't let them in without a passport, and then started to protest, and they're having a referendum in November to decide whether they want to continue with this United Nations script. So there are very interesting things afoot going on all over the world, to be honest. France, Italy, all these things going on that you won't see on your television. So there are many, many things that are looking like something's starting to change in the way that people are sort of reacting to this. Well, especially down there in Australia, it's increase of the jackboot, let's say. And good evening to everybody. Well, so I thought to myself today, somebody sent me something, and I had a look at it on Saturday, and I had to look at it again, and then I looked at it again this morning. Extremely interesting communication that was had in 2005, believe it or not. Now, I've read it, as I said, 3 times. Now, I'm not sure whether I've ever read this before. It doesn't ring any bells, which usually if I've actually looked at something before, I'll remember. However, I believe there's also a video of it where they have the robots talking it. So maybe I've seen that, but I don't remember ever reading it. So I just thought it might be interesting to score through some of this, because it's profound. It's absolutely profound what is being said here in this. This guy who claims to be, he says, I'm a member of an elite family who you despise. Ask me a question and I will answer them in short. So he's basically set up this it's a email communication with this particular person, and it was done on something, is it Godlike Productions back in 2005. But I have to say, it's absolutely profound, the conversation as it moves on. It's quite revealing in relation to what is reality and what is it that everybody believes, sort of thing, you know. Again, I'll say hi to everybody. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. So this guy claims to be an elite member of a family. So ask the questions basically, and he's going to answer them. Now she says why, and he says because I can. So the question is, what's an elite family? His answer is, that's how most are calling it. Families who for a long time have been ruling the people who are not from these bloodlines. So he's clearly setting out a demarcation between what is considered the bloodlines and the people. So that's your masses, basically. Nothing new. We're all pretty much aware of that, I suppose. Says, what's your thoughts on peak oil? It is known within certain circles that it is manufactured. So that's the idea of peak oil. The earth is producing more oil and gas than is being used now. Even believe it or not, sorry, no, even believe it or not, it is a natural process. The more you take, the more it produces to balance itself. Study the bees and the way they produce honey, and you will understand. That is a profound statement because I've found more data in the days I've been doing this to show that A, oil isn't a fossil fuel. That was an invention. And B, it doesn't. The well may drain, but if it's left for a year or 2 years, it will fill itself up again. Um, so again, I would go with that. This is on top of that, there are many places with large amounts of natural resources which never have been touched. And if I remember rightly, 12 years ago, maybe America was boasting these huge fields they'd found in Alaska that they were keeping in reserve if the petrodollar fell in relation to Saudi Arabia. Uh, I think that were coming through again on Alex Jones, but that was through his so-called insider pastor, which he was an interesting fellow, but definitely a lot of shit being carried on the truth he were offering. Is this dude one of the 13? Doesn't give you that information, but it's, let's just say, this the context of his language, how he speaks it, isn't first what you think it is. It takes some looking at to fully understand just, in my opinion, how why this stuff is. And so he doesn't declare whether he's one of the 13 or not. He just says he's part of one of the elite bloodlines that he claims we despise. No. She asks, what commonalities do the bloodlines share? And have you ever basically had sex with a child? Understand that bloodlines have been chosen to rule. It didn't just appear out of air. The souls which incarnate into these bloodlines who rule are picked by divine law. Other things don't have to be mentioned. The second question shows you read too much Ike, who is a tool that is being used. But to answer, which is in relation to has he had sex with a child, he says no. So she says, sorry, no one rules me and never has. He says, a little old saying, the perfect slave is the one that says, I'm not a slave. It's like an alcoholic saying he isn't an alcoholic. So therefore, he will always be an alcoholic. Get my drift. Again, profound stuff. Nothing so far am I finding on here that I would see as odd. She says, where do you elites store your mentally ill relatives caused by centuries of inbreeding? He says, it is a myth that inbreeding always causes problems. If the two persons who procreate carry genes which are of a better quality than the rest. She says, why have you allowed us to breed like rats if population is what you feel threatens you? We haven't allowed it, he says. You have more power than you think you have. Population does not threaten us in any way, shape, or form. Again, that's a myth. So, okay, people, we might say, well, we've all looked at these depopulation plans, etc., etc., etc. Now, as you'll note later on, he starts to he's actually positioning himself as part of one of these elite bloodlines, but then he's also giving you the idea that he doesn't live like they do. He lives a separate existence to them. So he is in essence as well separating himself. And he also goes on to speak of the black nobility, that he rephrases the dark nobility, which again will not be done by accident. That will have meaning. But that's further on. But as I said, so far, I can't fault anything that he's actually responding with here. You've got any courtesy? Yeah, that exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Your glass is half empty instead of half full. Yeah, that is such a major psychological position existing amongst everybody. You're either half full or half empty, and depending on where you are, he's going to drive you. You know, little simple tricks like that to let swim in your mind for a while, and you can start to see it somewhat. Um, they made us well. They made us slaves through birth certificates. Basically, they've created the birth certificates, but then we've accepted that as who and what we are. And you know, you act as though you own it, when clearly on the actual certificate itself it says it's crown copyright. So you say, can't argue with that, they've made us slaves. Now, this is the profundity of this document, because you can fault what I can't fault what he's saying. It doesn't mean to say everybody's going to agree what he's saying, but so anyway, let's have a look. So population, it's not to do with them, he's basically saying, and it doesn't affect them either way. She says, I'm curious what a member of an elite family thinks of GLP. So what do you think? The more divided people are, the easier it is to rule over them, making them believe they have a sword in their hand, which they think makes them powerful and able to fight the darker side, while it's just a toothpick. You have to be very careful who you give that imaginary sword to. Now, I've covered that in some of my videos in relation to how you've got doctrine, which you're supposed to apply yourself to understand it yourself, but instead, the humans have been coerced into putting this body, this institution, in between them and the questions, and so the answers come from there. So in essence, then you give up your sword to that institution. Your sword that's created allegorically in your thoughts, the energy you profess in relation to being given to this institution, etc. So you're giving it that power. They create it, you give it that power, I'm reading that chat tonight. So did you send it? Was it you that sent it, Jeff? Because I'll tell you what, this is something else, this. So yeah, I am. Okay. Right, let's have a look. It says, do you know that not just spoken words, but also written words emanate a frequency, which have a direct effect? And I've discussed that with you before. How you communicate in a letter, it transmits the same impression as if you were actually face to face with them. The energy that you're dishing out when you write that, so if it's anger, frustration, etc., will be communicated to the recipient, the one who reads it. Yeah. So I understand exactly what he's saying there, and this is where he's sort of showing you this symbolism of the sword, not the physical sword at the physical level, but the esoteric swords that we have when we're thinking, when we're moving, when we're just basically existing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what specializing is, my friend. It says, so do you know that not just spoken words, but the written words emanate a frequency which have a direct effect? And I would say that a vast majority of the written words here are not helping the cause you think you are fighting for. Again, he's absolutely correct. Because of the questions, you can see where they're at. Do you know what I'm saying? The question is, what is your religious affiliation? His answer is, religion is created by us. The religions which rule now are the ones that are under our total control. I can't give out much about this, but Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism are a bit off, let's say. There is a core of truth, but it is drowning in a sea of perversions for you to pick out, and it gives good luck. That is absolutely correct. It doesn't matter what books you read, philosophers, whatever you're reading, a lot of what's in those books deliberately is garbage. Yeah, and this is where it gets, whereas based on your capacity to grasp your points of reference in what you already have understood, will determine how you absorb the, let's say, the good stuff from the shit. Yeah? Very important, that kind of. So basically, what he's saying is, yeah, they've created them. The religions is what, and I've always said that you've got to separate the doctrine from the religion because they're not the same. Okay, not the same at all. So he says there's a core of truth, but he's drowning in the sea of perversions for you to pick out. What we believe in does not matter, but it's about serving the divine law, which was passed on to us. So now he's claiming that it was passed on to them, and further down he actually says that it's everywhere, you can't hide it. Okay. So what he's probably saying is the keys to it have been passed on. That's what gets passed down through these families that are offered through the secret societies, etc. You know. Excuse me. So the next question is, how about the world economy? It says one thing conspiracy theorists are right about is that it is based on money that doesn't exist. So why would he call us a conspiracy theorists? Because we're obviously correct. Never existed and never will. So that it's money based on something that doesn't exist, which we know money is. Paper money is fiat, especially. The ones who own the banks also own the media and politics, so it can be portrayed the way they want you to believe it from every orifice. Same with this script that's pushing out all over everybody now. So let's just see, anybody. Words are a sword, yeah. Thoughts are another sword. Yeah, pulling the sword from the stone is basically removing your soul, your character, if you will, your spirit, from the dictates of the physical body, which he goes into. Okay, it's profound. This, I suppose, I'm saying it's profound. It's because it's right on my button. To be honest, I think transcendentalism is probably a key to understanding the Vedas and all the ancient texts, if you will. Anyway, we're always all. So the question is, when will the wheat be separated from the chaff? Or do you want to get rid of the wheat and leave the chaff for your slaves? Whichever, when will it happen? It says, I know 100% sure there is no end time. At least not like it's being portrayed everywhere, be it religion, media, etc. Well, absolutely. I mean, futurism, that's what I've been trying to get across in explaining what futurism is, rehashed what's been and projected into the future. And the ones that claim that are the Jesuits. They've always claimed that as their baby. This place was never meant to end the way it is being described. There will be a time when everyone will be released, but that is not a mass event, but rather one by one. Work on yourself. So now you're starting to see that there's an inversion in between the way religion portrays everything and what we would call divine law, or the real essence of what this place is about. It's something we're supposed to be not coming back to. Yeah. So if you're seeing that in the inverse, you're never ever going to escape the cycle of reincarnation. Oh yeah, ever, because you're in love with the place. It's the be all and end all. It doesn't mean say to hate it because you're here, but he does touch on that slightly as well, which is interesting. The question is, I'm curious to know why the elite do not lead. They seem to be more of a parasite on society. The answer is, a fish in the ocean can't see the birds are flying in the sky. Okay. The question, have you or any of your family members ever participated in an occult ritual? And if yes, what was the nature of it? You're right, Buddhism isn't a religion, but the Buddhism that you read isn't the original source of that uh, doctrine as it's been formed into the religion. There's a teaching in it, but then there's a teaching in all the religions if you're not following it verbatim. You know, you're in trouble if you're following a book verbatim to remember it. You've had it. You've no room then for creativity. You know, you're no longer man. You're not creating. You're copying. Different creation, copying. Completely different formats. Yeah, man is in the image of, and thus he creates. The human copies, or another term, believes. Yeah, he believes things. He doesn't know, believes. Seems like so far. Yeah, it gets where it gets a lot more profound. We might not get it through it all in this one live stream because it's quite immense. If we don't, we'll continue as a second part next week, if that's acceptable. Vanguard and BlackRock, yeah, but if you look at Vanguard, its majority shareholders are BlackRock. Stateside are up Vanguard and BlackRock, yeah. It's Tony BlackRock. Cube worship. Well, get into that as well here. Actually, this guy gets right into it. It doesn't mince his words. I'll tell you that now. Basically, if you don't carry out your true task purpose while you're here, you will be a reincarnate. Exactly, precisely. It's so your soul has been infused into a biological, physical body so that you can experience this frequency, this realm. That body has a myriad of instincts for self-preservation. They get in the way of living in tune with what is, instead of formulating your life based on your bodily impulses. And that it doesn't matter which doctrine you may study, that's the core of a lot of the especially Eastern groovy stuff. Right, so she's asked him if he does rituals. Now, again, can't fault this fella. Rituals have a meaning which cannot be understood by most. Rituals are there to connect with the higher beings who govern this realm. We are doing our job. But notice, as he's already expressed, he can tell that she's read a lot of David Icke. So naturally then, the mere mention of the word ritual evokes in most people black magic, dark magic, negative. Everything has to be negative. It's not the way at all, okay, as he's pretty much expressing. So we're doing our job, he says. Well, I'd have to say your divine law has fucked up this planet and its people very well. He says, peasants like you don't understand that you do it, nobody else. Profound. He says, by the way, by what you just said, you lengthened your stay on Earth one more lifetime. My condolences. Because what he means by that is she's basically let herself off the hook completely, and all the blame in everything that's going on has been thrust onto these label lines. Okay, so that's what he's showing you there. So she's coming from the wrong standpoint from the get-go. Who put that there? Who continues to put that there? Okay. She asks, do you frequent the Bohemian Grove and fully participate in cremation of care, sacrifice to Moloch, screwing the male homosexual prostitutes, orgies, etc.? He says, those and other similar places are for the politicians and media people. They are obligated. Sometimes a bloodline will be present, but will not participate in those acts, which are not the rituals we do. Okay. So all the sorts of sordid stuff that's been well presented out there, don't kid yourself, it does happen, it goes on. Satanists do invert all the rituals in connection to nature spirits, and the higher hierarchies, as it were, the jinn. I mean, just consider that most of the Arabic lore about Aladdin, all that lore, that is all stories about men who thought they could control demons or the jinn, only to realize that they've been tricked. That's what the Arabic lore is all about, Sinbad, all that stuff. It's all about that stuff. But that's jinn. Because the jinn do seem to be, or the people of the jinn do seem to be the Middle Eastern and Arabic races by definition of the fact, not because all of a sudden it's just happened, Let's have a look here. It says there were many questions. Most I would answer yes, some no. Don't believe all that gurus tell about us and you will do fine. Question. Do you consider the prevalent success of organised crime families and syndicates as a massive failure of your collective will? He says they are there for a reason. They aren't as successful as they look, though. They are broken. Okay, well, they are broken because the police run them all. Police intelligence, which is MI5, MI6, CIA, Mossad, and every intelligence agency of every nation on the planet. Russia, FSB, China, yeah. All these intelligence agencies are their own entity inside your nation, now running it as a corporation. Yeah, that's how they've done it. So look. So common sense rules, cubers. Yep. Create a blank canvas, rather. Cool. Ruben, right. Ruben, if you sent it, nice one, matey. Here I'm answering it. So definitely, thanks for sending this. It's very interesting. That viewpoint of the stories there. Right. Now then. Next question. Why do you continue to attempt to control mass consciousness by spreading fear through every outlet available to you? Why not set the knowledge free as was intended long ago? The written word is spreading the wings of truth. Is it? It's a hell of a lot of lies, if you ask me. The sword has been given to the sheep, and the day of reckoning is soon at hand. And I believe in no law of divine or hierarchy. We are all equal in the eyes of the Creator, and for that you must answer in your time. The meek are inheriting the earth. Presently, I pray for you. So that's somebody's question to him. He says, if that was the aim, it would have been done in an instant. So depopulation. You do not understand what this world we live in really is. Sorry, no. I'm talking. Oh, that's yeah. No, I've got mixed up. So he says, if that was the aim, it would be done in an instant. Sorry. Next question. I have no questions. I do have a statement. The time of reckoning is at hand. He says, it is not. Right? The false reckoning for the humans is at hand because that's what they've joined in with. So if you're a Christian, you've joined in with it. If you are a Muslim, you've joined in with it. If you are a Jew, you've joined in with it. And even brought in the Buddhists, the Tibetans, and some of the many different religious groups from India. They've all been brought into this now. And so those religions are full of people who follow it, believe, copy. They don't create the self, they let the institution do the creating. So basically, the gist of why we're here today, you'll get from this is that because you've all done it. You fed them, keep feeding them, and you've given them your wealth, your energy, your time, etc. You know what I'm saying? So his interview, 2005. Now, it goes the best slave is the one who thinks he's free. Ultimately, it's a matter of genes. Do you understand self-cloning? Do you agree that the planet is replete with false allies and false enemies? His answer is, that's not how it originally goes about the slave. If you read carefully, you will see. He's right there. Last question has a yes as an answer. There are also no real allies or enemies. Only the ones we find in ourselves. Which he'll expand this. I'll tell you what, good stuff this. So the question is, if you're indeed doing what you say you are, then you will know that you and your ilk are in big trouble. Your time is short, and those you belong to, who are in our space quadrants as we speak, aliens, already know it. I imagine that they are tad busy right now at this moment, but of course you must keep up appearances, even when you know you're fighting a losing battle. He says, there is no end of time. A long, long time ago, the people did almost manage to take over. And then bad things happened on Earth to those people. What are you seeing now? So, now that's an interesting concept because you can see that at two levels. So, when he's talking about the people, it's not man, is it? It'll use the term man. At this guy's level of command of language, he's not talking about man here. He's talking about people. Yeah. And they're trying to do it now, aren't they? You know, you've got these different groups trying to take over everything. Oh, it's would you class them as man? No, because you're breaching the Ten Commandments. You're not man. You are people. Human. So he says, are you really living on the planet you think you are? Question. The higher beings who govern this realm, do you serve them? By what names do you call them? Have you ever seen them? Where do they reside? They penetrate everything and they are benevolent. Question. Insider, you skipped my question about what really hit the Pentagon. Does that mean you weren't going to answer it? Well, we haven't covered that, but it did say anyway. Does it matter what hit it? He said, which is true. If you're focusing on to what hit it, you're not focusing on to what happened that day. The end of free trade, a war on terror, completely new policy running through bankrupt governments called Contingency Act, Patriot Act, and each nation's relevant bag of fish. Do you get what he's saying there? Does it matter what hit the Pentagon? It weren't a fucking plane. It's obvious the whole thing was a setup. And if you think it was set up by a load of Arabs in a cave in Afghanistan, all right. I mean, can you imagine the logistics it took to kick that off? Can you imagine? And we don't have to go into it. We don't. If you didn't see on the day, as I did, what were going on there, you know, used people, when I started on the internet with this first, about 2007, people used to really get on my case because I didn't promote 9/11 thing everywhere. I always had a page on my website dedicated to it, and I'd only put on anything that was brand new. And people really used to go hell for leather at me about it. And I just used to say to them, if you didn't see what 9/11 was on 9/11, then you need to keep going through all that data. You know what I'm saying? With that profound, I saw it as it happened, you know. Right. So, and then he just says that he didn't contract to answer every question that they asked. And then he says, I'll be back tomorrow. So this is part 2 of this, the day after, and this is the 25th of September 2005. So he says, how strange that some of you who talk about love, light, and peace are the ones who 2 sentences later cuss and talk about murdering others, smirking about it being soon. Yeah, that interesting, is it not? He says, are you sure you are on the good side? And who is Natasha? Which I don't get that bit. Let's have a look. Anybody on here? Now he'll explain to you who Rothschilds are, and he isn't one. Yeah, he's going to explain that to you. So it, it certainly was an inside job, but whom? By whom? I remember that guy that came out, what he called, yeah, I can't remember his name. He came out of all of a sudden a DJ were, but also Bloodline. And he put the entire thing in the hands of the Rotary Club, the World Global Rotary Club. Giorgio Ballesteros, I think he was called, which I sent an email to back in the day and asked him if what I can't remember his name. So Leo Zagami had said was correct. And he did actually respond. And I still have the email. He did respond. If I can dig it out while this live stream's on, I'll get it and just reply to you what he actually said. So anyway, it says, for the ones who are a bit smarter than that, ask away. I will answer the way I choose to. Before you ask the question, force yourself to think outside the box that was created for you by others. Ask a real question that you thought about. Formulate it in detail. For the others, if you could leave out cussing, hate, bigotry, and prejudice, which is based on your guru's amazing wisdom, getting it? You're being told here what crack is. It would show you are a bit more evolved from the peasant stage. I will not answer all questions sometimes because it's obvious, if you think you're about it or parts of it have been answered, and other times because I do not have the obligation to do so. So the next question is, so Bill Gates more elite than, is Bill Gates more elite than you? How about Queen Elizabeth? Are you an Arab? Can't you control the oil instead of the Arabs? He says, the ones you know the names of are not true bloodlines, like you have been taught by the theorists. They are not the ones who write the symphony, neither conduct it. The ones you mentioned and other known names merely play the violin or cello when they are told to, the way they are told to. I've said this to you many times. If you can see it, it's not the top. If you know about it, it's not the top. You're looking at the puppet level. Yeah. Even your Rothschilds. He actually explains who the Rothschilds are. Very insane. I mean, this is just dynamite. And 2005, woo. So let's have a look here. It says, it does not matter what race I am. It has no effect on anything. Oil is already under full control, like all natural resources. So he's not pretending these people don't control and rule everybody that is not their bloodline. So, question, why does visualization work? It does not work for everybody. You have to reach a certain stage in your development. This means living by strict rules, applying them to everything you do in life. In detail, most humans do not have the discipline nor temperance to achieve that stage. Some of you talk like they can, but I know even without knowing anything about their lives that they are further away from it than they think. Visualization works because it is an essential way of the creational process in this material universe. The universe is a living entity who uses its mind to create, and the beings created from that may have that same power to within their boundaries. Okay? Again, excellent. So scamdemics come up as a thing here. Are they filtering that out? He's asking me if I want to show that from Lone Ranger. So just best thing to do, because I know that I can actually blacklist you if your commenters are mental. So just think carefully about what you put up there, and then they don't give me Irish shirts and all the bullshit that came after 9 course. Well, that's what I mean. Terrorism in the UK, it's been going on forever. Yeah, his task is to answer the questions. Yeah. Okay, you're all chatting amongst yourself. That's good, isn't it? The next question: who is using Ike? And better question: why? He says, Ike has a core of truth he's trying to pass. What he does not realise is that is actually what works against him. The reptilian part was fed in by the ones who work for the bloodlines. In a period of 7 to 8 months, he was bombarded with victims who witnessed shape-shifting, satanic rituals, etc., in such a way he could not refuse to believe it. He couldn't refuse to believe it. Sometimes the witnesses were led to him a few times a day, depending on his location. Others like Ike, and there are more than you think, have been fed similar stories. Now, I've not been immune from that either, where they've attempted to feed me garbage and pish. Yeah. And back in the early days, I might get carried away with one for a little while. But then, luckily, at some point, either somebody points something out or I'd suss it myself. But anybody that's operated in this game is subject to that. They will always try and put and guide where you're going. And honestly, unless you've been doing it for quite a while, you will guarantee you're going to fall for it because these people are expert at it. Bearing in mind, they know you, they've mapped you, they know what kind of character you are. And unless you're absolutely 100% unpredictable, they'll soon tap your habits, and that's where they get you. So, yeah, this is how it works. This is really how it works. Why you've got to your discernment's got to be A1 before you put pen to paper and start typing them keys. If you don't check what you're putting out and where it's sourced, who's passed it around, because in that case, a lot of times, you'll never find a source that it's claimed to be from, but you'll find somebody that said that is the source, but doesn't supply it, and then that becomes the source. But then if you look at where it got passed around, that's a method to have a look at, just to check out some stuff. Like there's something going around at the moment where I can't remember. Anyway, I just sent it back and said the original FOI request would be required if you were going to accept that as fact. But it's been pushed all around Facebook, It says, really, I am not reptilian. The answer why does not have to be answered. Okay. Why is it being controlled? Who's using him? So it doesn't have to be answered. He said that. Well, because the answers are obvious. Whatever it means to whomever's reading it, that's it. Why? You know what I'm saying? People like fantasy, do they not? Horror films, they love to be afraid, scared shitless. Women especially. God, I remember my kids growing up. Mother, they just play bloody that what was it called? Resident Evil. They'd scare themselves after death. They were like, you're all tapped. You know what I'm saying? And then everybody thought I was tapped. Remember? Can you see how the inversion goes down? We're living in a fruit bat cage. A fruit bat zoo. I'm telling you. It doesn't mention Rockefeller because, again, he's classed them all. If you know them, they're puppets. They're used by. Same with these billionaires, as I've said before. They own nothing. They're just front men. frontmen. He does mention something about that spastic that pretends he's throwing Tesla, that's throwing shit all over the shop. Gives you a good insight into him, but I'm not so sure I'm having that. That might be a bit of skullduggery. Comment section would be better. What does that mean? Huh? Oh, right, yeah, put everything. Good idea, yeah. Fill it up. And I believe if you click the thumbs up, I get kudos or something like that. You know, because they are attacking it. I'm shadow banned to death on here, man. I'm telling you, it's ridiculous. They're knocking stuff off all the time. I watch them. You know, if you ever get on and you've knocked off, it's not me. Do it again and keep banging it because they're being very naughty. And here's me being lovely and nice and fantastic. I mean, I could rip roar if I want, and if I set one up myself on my servers, we will rip roar. There won't be any shit whatsoever. So it's probably not in their interest to get rid of it just yet because I will set up my own. I will set it up and I'll say whatever I feel like saying. And I can say a lot, believe me. I don't have any true sports where we're not shoes with a John Harris, forget John Harris. I mean, we were friends, don't get me wrong, but there ain't no heroes like that. They're not heroes. They're pushing something because it's scripted. It comes out of them out their asshole. You know, if you look at my work, it's took me, well, you could say 30 years of cocking it up to get to my point where I've got a big body of reference if I'm talking about a subject. If it just comes out of your asshole in quick succession, it's being fed. Yeah, you know. Anyway, we'll not get into that. If you want to know about Freeman, look at some of my older videos because I talk about it consistently. You don't want to be anywhere near that because it's a trap. Best I'll say it's a trap. You know, John Harris wasn't on the correct path. As I told him often in our many phone calls. Of course, it was an eye opener because he was. You look, you can't spread lies unless it's on the back of a shitload of truth, because it's the truth. Once you hear that 80% of truth and you're filled with it, you miss what comes next, which is the bullshit. Either the bullshit in your face or that they're admitting. They're taking you on a path so that you don't see that. You see everything except just that little bit. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look at this La Palma volcano. I've watched it for about 3 weeks. I found it quite meditative, actually, just like looking in a campfire. I've learned more about volcanoes in this 3 weeks, and I already knew quite a bit. But when I first went on there, I think I was 2 weeks in when I got on it, when it was full, and I mean full of Americans giving it the end time, blah, 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 thing. And it was like, what the fuck? It was just so shocking how insane people that call themselves Christians are, when all they're actually doing is hating everybody that they don't like and calling in Armageddon. Anyway, the Spanish guys, they weren't having it, and there were a lot of English moderators on these live streams as well. And they just kicked them all off and blocked them. And you know, it was just pleasant because people were asking questions, people were finding information and passing it on. Like I said, I've learned more about volcanoes and earthquakes and how they interconnect in this last 3-4 weeks than anything. Once we got rid of all them idiots. I mean, talk about a program that just takes a volcanic eruption that we can now watch on YouTube, whereas volcanic eruptions are going on all the time, every day, 365 a year. But now we can watch it on YouTube, and that triggered all the Fruit Loops on this futurist Armageddon rapture pish, which is absolute pish. And the only way that mindset is going to learn what pish it is to go and get the vaccine. Because your pastor is telling you to do it. Your vicar of Christ is telling you to do it. Your vicar, everybody that's got a frock on is telling you to do it. So if you are a copier of the religion, now you're starting to see what it is you've been in, why you really should never give up your own autonomy to anything else, no matter how powerful you think it is. I've put a 10-second slow-mo on everything. I thought it might help me because I get lost. When there's a lot, I get lost in what's being said. And I know I'm missing a lot of people out. Well, that's not I like the live streams because we can all interconnect. So that sort of defeats the object, if you will. So I've just put it on for that. Frontman through. Well, John Harris's grandfather was the chauffeur for the Queen Mother. Vatican. Listen, he's explained on here already that the religions in play today are fully controlled by the bloodline. That's what he said to you. He's told you. None of the religions are being controlled by their own priesthood. None of them. Christians are Zionists. Muslims are Talmudists. Jews are Talmudists. Yeah? None of you are operating according to your book. None of you. Which is why you're in such a mess. Which is why you're not getting any sense in relation to this shit that's going on now from your church, from your synagogue, from your mosque. You're getting the opposite. Because they do not belong to the book that they claim to be based on. None of them. It's so important people understand that. But you're in there, you're trapped, you're believing it, you're sucking it in for whatever your reasons are. Whether it's for prejudice, because you're naturally a racist pig. Whether it's because you're after money that you think might come because you're on a crusade. You know? I mean, let's be honest about it. We have been invaded and all they've done is rob it, our system. Rob it blind. Any place in this nation now that has a big immigrant population has a huge social security bill because they're fleecing it. So so in your area first, the social security is coming out your tax, and what's left for you, they don't do anything with apart from give it to themselves. So if you really want to sort out this kind of stuff, the social security bill on benefits has to be demolished, and the way you do that is anybody that's illegal gets nothing. I don't care if you came in illegal 50 years ago. If you came in illegally, everything you've created here, you did so by fraud, out. Piss off. You're not for here because you're milking it. Yeah? And if you're claiming to be Muslim, you're breaching the Quran because you are to abide by the law of those nations, not milk it like it's about to run out. It's the way it is. So, like I said, every single race, religion rather, is holding on to these religious bodies that are all, as he said, controlled by this bloodline. So you say about the Divine Brotherhood. Are you ME? Are you he who manipulates the Matrix? Inquiring minds want to know because I'm thoroughly confused. You say we despise you, but I could not imagine despising any being from the divine realms. Then you act like you're part of the elite bloodline on Earth, but what would the bloodlines have to do with the spiritual world? Again, I'm confused. Could you clarify just what is the elite of whom you say we despise, and yet are you which apparently has all the inside scoop? He says, you are confused, for you have accepted the other versions of truth, and that you think you have a sight of the big picture. But what I say dismisses huge parts of it. There is a misconception about bloodlines. Obviously, the questions that are being asked here prove that. But there is a reason for that, and it serves an important purpose. We manipulate this world only as far as we are allowed to by divine law. Okay, that's a fact. You can't have it always. If you believe in one superior creative mind being whatever you want to call it, yeah, then everything else is beneath it. Whether we call it evil, we call it this, we call it that. Have you not given thought to the fact that that evil is there to try and tempt you to see if you're actually evil? So that it has a role to play. and it's not in and of itself anything other than what it were as it's traversed in this realm. Past, still earthbound. It's ordained to carry out a task. Just thought. So in essence, then you're looking at a lot of these what we class as bad entities, evil spirits, who are actually of this system that we're all trying to escape. If you want to get out of reincarnation. Anyway, I digress. We manipulate this world only as far as we are allowed to by the divine law. We provide you with tools, and then it's up to you to determine how you use it. Tools can be used as a malicious way, but no one is forcing you to use them that way. You are choosing yourself. Correct? So despising the ones who provide you with the tool that you voluntarily chose to sin with is about you trying to camouflage your tracks. Correct? Correct. Absolutely correct. Now, a lot of people might say, well, you've been doing this, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm trying to help people, do you get, to say, look, this is what you're not seeing about your organisation. This is what you're not seeing about what's going on in politics. This is what you're not seeing about this particular person who's tied into this particular person, that particular group, who's pushing this particular agenda. Yeah, that's what I've done. And I don't think that's going to carry on into the future, to be quite honest. I think my sort of energies are changing to something completely different now. Now that I can see how many people are stuck in this insanity, it's just removed that vigour I used to have, holding the idea that this couldn't possibly go on in England. Well, that's got shot to shit in this last 2 years. So I don't know where my future is going to be. Who are the 13 bloodlines? Well, who tells us there's 13? There's loads of them. The offshoots of them are massive. I mean, in a lot of cases, these lower puppet lines are the bastard lines, you might say. Never been a fan of religion, always thought it was about control and modern races, but don't agree with the UN agenda to change the makeup Western world, though. Huge forced migration of people. Correct. Well, it has to be in the Western world like this because we have the capacity to think and invent and create and make. Okay, we've done all that and then handed it over to the Crown and then they took it over to the nuclear ground, etc., etc., etc. That's on us. Be too busy playing out. Yeah. We took our eyes off the ball for many a time, many a century. Well, everybody lives in the fiction, don't they? Don't they? Always. Migration is interesting. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, any crew that comes out of Abraham's lines is doomed. The son of a murderer, as they're told. Well, they're not. Anyway. It says, you get what you deserve. That is how this universe works. We do our duty, so do yours. Now, this is what I said before, that when I started off on this journey, I knew that I didn't know anything, but I knew that I was prepared to go move with what I thought and take the consequences. And that's all it takes. Because that's self-responsibility, isn't it? I did this, that happened. What part of that's my responsibility? What part is it is somebody else's responsibility because that was their action? You know what I'm saying? And so you get down to the core, you are the decider, you are the chooser. He uses the term perpetrator. So it's a very old saying unrecorded in open history. The devil doesn't know he's the devil, he thinks he's God. It says wrong. It actually states that humans who worship the bad think they worship the good. I can't verify that as whether that's correct or not. But I have heard people use that about the devil, and he's saying no, it actually states that humans who worship the bad think they worship the good. Very apt today when you look at some of these dogmas that these religious people are running on. Oh, we're going to get slaves. Oh, we're going to kill everybody. We're going to chop their heads off. We're going to chop their arms off, chop their legs off. I mean, you find me that in any commandment, and I'll give you a lollipop. I'll tell you now, I'll give you 3 fucking lollipops if you can find any of that shite in any of the 10 commandments. I wouldn't even try looking if I were you, because I'll tell you now, you might learn something. You do not understand the world that you really live in. Can you elaborate on that statement? It says, only if you formulate the question and understand that certain questions need to be answered by yourself only, not others. Otherwise, they have no purpose. How true is that? Oh my God. I mean, back in that Mr. School, especially, where I'd come to some great revelation and be so proud of myself, thinking, am I the only person that knows this? And then maybe like 3 months down the line, you'll be reading a particular book and boom, it's laid out. There, you're on the path. You've passed something. You've moved forward in some respect. Do you know what I mean? It's like a thumbs up. If you're on a computer game, you've won a prize. It's that. So that is absolutely so real. So real. It's unbelievable. So he says. So this guy puts a statement in. I'm not coming back to your planet next time. Smoke on that. He says, what gave you the impression that when that time comes, you have a say in that? Right? Well, you don't, do you? If this reincarnation is going on as it's described in a lot of the Sanskrit texts, and remember, it was taken out of the biblical texts at the Council of Nicaea, so it was in there originally. Why did they remove that? Is that some trick? Is that some major deception right at the get-go, and it's not been picked up on? Or if it's been picked up on, nobody does speak it. Why? Speak your truth. What was the reason that you people came to this planet? Almost the same reason you came. Does that mean they're still as fixed as the rest? Quite possibly. Question. Now, what elite family does anyone know well enough to despise? W, is that you? So he's referring to the Bushes. It says, answer. To clear this up once and for all, the Bushes are not bloodline. In fact, they are your kind, who wanted to be worshipped by your kind. I will sum it up again in short. The ones that have known faces, names are not directly bloodline. They are not the composers, conductors. They just play the flute the way they are told to. Bushes, Clintons, Sharons, Arafats, Hitlers, Dalai Lamas, Mandalas, Blurs, Gores, Chavezes, Gandhis, Kennedys, Lennons, Dylans, Einsteins, Michelangelos, Popes, Caesars, Aristotles, Herodotus, Akhenaten's. They all play and played their part the way they are told to do. Yep. The way they are told to do. The last vestiges of that, you could say here, was the Civil War. Because what he's saying there about divine rule, those bloodlines that we had claimed to have that right. So they were claiming to be in the same position as this guy, that they were only there to push out divine law. And we got a parliament and a puppet monarchy after the Civil War. Did we not? So that has power, you know. So again, that I don't know. Let's not go to that. But I'm still pretty sure that this force has took over everything. Vatican II for Rome, etc., etc. You know, the shift to Zionism for the Protestants. And he'll explain in better detail than I could about Islam's problem. He says these people who love recognition and praise of your kind would not be allowed to be in the same room with some people I'm related to. Now, next question. Rather than give them a sword or a toothpick, I gave them a canvas and a pen. The words, as you say, have vibration and effect. And though, yes, many are written here are contrary to the one, some ring true. It is those few that matter most. I was recently asked by a friend of mine, what do you do when you have mastered the game? It says, this seems like it's still a question. This seems like a question that would apply to one in your situation as well. My answer was, save as many as you can. I'm curious to know what was yours. What is yours? He says, if it has an immediate effect, it is not a canvas and a pen anymore, but a sword. So the action, yeah? So it's been made manifest. I'll read that again. It says, if it is an immediate effect, it is not a canvas and a pen anymore, but a sword. An imaginary one, but nonetheless a sword. And it is not working the way you think it does. Interesting. Not whether you're picking some of this stuff up yourselves, but let's have a look. All religion's man-made because it's a group of people that has an hierarchy, which means somebody is benefiting from all that the rest in that group carry out. Correct? Well, even faith. What is faith? Faith that you're on the right path, or faith that you will be guided to the right. Well, you're not going to be guided if you're joining the club, are you? You're only going to be guided by the club. So every time you get an impulse of intuition, you're going to edit it, or get rid of it if it doesn't fit in with the club rules. Are you not? Of course you are. It's natural. That's exactly what you're going to do. They decode the Bible. Well, the Bible's full of shit. And it actually shows you that it is. You know, well, Daniel's talking about what? Time's way gone. And yet it's all been rehashed into this. So let's have a look at the Gospels. You know the first Gospel? And I'm going to have to get my notes out here. Do you know that the actual, you've got Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. Luke removed everything Jewish out of his Gospels. Old Testament gone. Anything that was Jewish, he threw it out. He went with the Greek. It's Matthew, Mark, and John that dragged in all the Old Testament, the Jew stuff, into the New Testament. And that the first Gospels were put together, let me have a look if I can, by a guy called Marcion. And he was a Pauline Christian who went much further, and he was not at all interested in the Jewish root. So he, again, the guy that put the Gospels together for the first time, removed the Jewish root from it. And so did Luke. He was interested only from its Greek roots or Pauline roots. He omitted the books Mark, Matthew, John, favouring only the Gospel of Luke. Right? So this is when the Gospels were first put together. Who appears to be not born Jewish. So Luke wasn't Jewish. The rest of the writers were Jewish. He also rejected the entire Old Testament. He tried to create a complete Hellenized Christianity, and he began the idea of correlating the canon. And he did that in... Oh, shit. When did he do that? Wait a minute. Right, in 140 AD. So in 140 AD, Marcion created his non-orthodox canon, and it only had 11 books in it. Okay? And the early collections that he had included, and he only had 11, were then omitted from what we know today, this garbage. Just give us a sec, Jack. Hi, Chuck. I'm just on a live stream. All right, Chuck. Right. Well, you can watch it if you go on. I don't know yet. Maybe another hour. All right. Bye. Apologies, everybody. Right. So did you know that? I didn't even know that until the week when I was looking at this fantasticness. So 140 AD, that was when the first gospel was put together, and it only contained 11 books and not an ounce of Jewry in it. Okay? So then I would suggest his bloodline that he likes came in, Constantine, bang. we get this nonsense. Clever stuff. Anyway. So that's right. If it had a media effect, it's not a canvas and pen anymore. It's a sword, an imaginary one, but nonetheless a sword, and it's not working in the way you think it does. Have we got any more questions before we move to next? Animals, of course, knowing. Yeah, exactly. They just are. They are. And they're living in the moment, aren't they? Always. They're not sat there shitting themselves. What happened 5 minutes ago? I mean, you watch a cat trotting along like it can't be arsed, and all of a sudden there'll be a danger. It shit itself, analyse it, give itself maybe 30 seconds to just resettle, and then it's off like nothing happened. And it ain't thinking about it anymore. It's off. That's living in the moment, which we certainly don't. We're either dragging the past or formulating the future. When you read a word, it's direct input to your head. Of course. Isaiah, one of the biggest deceptions. Well, if you're going to get wrapped up in the biblical lore instead of what the Creator said, not the Lord, not the word God either. That's it's garbage. The word God can mean anything. Anybody can have a God. You can have a God of your plant. Your dog might have a God. That God, it's the word itself. It, for me, is called, forget it. The word Lord, again, Baal, called, forget it. Not even remotely relevant to you seeking out what is the divine law and the only law that we are all equal before in this or on this earth. That's what I seek. You've word. It won't let me show you think. Oh, it's let me. The gospel contradicts each other. You see, this is another thing as well. These contradictions come if you follow in the words in phrases and sentences as opposed to grasping the essence. So in everything, there's always going to be a word if you're reading something you're not sure about. Define it. And don't define it with these modern day Looney Tune dictionaries. Do you know what I mean? You've got to try and, if you're seeking out the root and the meaning of old text, you've got to try and understand the mindset around the words that they use then. You know? Like the Egyptian hieroglyphs. That were priesthood language. Not necessarily what the people of Egypt understood. They might never have understood it themselves. That was priesthood language, the language of the mystery schools, priesthood. When is Jesus coming back? Jesus ain't coming back nowhere, mate. Why would he come back? If he were to come back, it would subvert the entire Catholic tradition that doesn't believe in reincarnation. How is it possible? How is it possible you have an organisation, institution that doesn't believe in reincarnation but pretends it's coming back anyway? That's the difference in copying, believing, and applying yourself to what it is you're interested in understanding. Big differences. It goes on about the 5 kings, not 3 kings. That's interesting too. Look, there is a semblance of sanity in the Bible, but clearly, from watching that volcano, it's not understood by the masses that call themselves Christians. It is not. They shouldn't be reading the Bible. They should be just seeking out what the Father said, the Creator, when He created the earth, man, male, female, created He them. Yeah, so man distinguishes a race. I think the whole concept today is, as this guy's putting out, there are the bloodlines that are still man, and then the people, this human. He says, you say most are contrary to the one, and that is true. In fact, almost all is contrary. But you say because of the few that ring true, it's worth it. You cannot have 2 contrary essences at the same time and place. even though they may have the same spring, which means one of the two is not present here. Do I have to tell you which one that is? About mastering the game. How does one know they have mastered it? Does someone else tell them? Yeah, mentors. See, can you see why they've got mentors in everywhere? Somebody else is telling you whether you've achieved or not. Fuck that or shit. I'll learn by experience whether I'm achieving or not. You know what I'm saying? And thus far, I've not really done right well in some quarters, I can tell you. So I know I'm fantastic and amazing, but only in that kind of thing. The rest of it is in fucking pieces, is the general terms. Well, I'm used to it now, you know what I'm saying? Get used to shit when you've been in shit for a long time. Does someone else tell them? See, if the master is not really a master, yet he acts like one, it will mean he will make errors. He will have flawed thoughts and act accordingly. People who start listening to him and adopt the flawed opinions and way of living, eventually he will do more harm than one bloodline actually has the power to do personally. How true is that? Hence, why leaders have been created for you, who have mastered their game. Politics, lying, bullshit. Yeah, they've mastered that. Yeah, Matt Hancock blagged you for ages. Now you all know what he were a twat. We were telling you were a twat from the beginning, but he mastered the art of persuading you out there that he were fucking God's gift to humanity. See that word God? What God? Yeah, God, shit word, crap word. Hence why leaders have been created for you who have mastered their game. Jesus of Nazareth is a nice example. He was created. Now, the Druids are very clear in that. He was a Druid initiate. So we're looking, if you want to try and look at who this bloodline is that he won't tell us, claiming a lot of the stuff that the Druids claim. Yeah, so maybe we're looking at a bloodline that doesn't get much chit chat. Not even one that you've imagined. You know what I'm saying? Jesus of Nazareth, nice example. He was created. This human has many worshippers, and they have murdered in his name and still do. George Bush. Jesus of Nazareth was not a master of the game. He was a puppet being used in the game, and he still is serving the agenda among you. So you might think you are saving as many as you can like him, but are you really? How would I answer the question, what do you do when you have mastered the game? And he says, checkmate. Yeah. Question, is Earth a prison? Yes, and even worse, the ones who believe the contrary will never escape. So if you don't believe this place is a prison, you'll never escape it. That's his words. Why would an alleged member of an elite family waste 1 minute of their time or give credence to the cesspool that is GLP? Answer, bloodlines are not robots who all act the same. You are confusing the ones who you think control you with others. Question, now that on population reduction, we have a few brewing like AIDS. However, it has been my feeling that the release of a bio will be in a timely fashion cloaked in chaos from another event. What say you on that? He says, there is no plan to reduce the population. That is fully in the hands of the people. So that idea of, get it? See, listen to this. There is no plan to reduce the population. That is fully in the hands of the people. True. If you choose to go to war, you chose it. It's in your hands. You take this shot, you chose it. It's in your hands. You choose to hate that religion, you chose it. You choose that you make a choice that your book says you have to hate that religion and that you have to kill them. Your choice. because it's your choice to believe that book. That's what he's saying there. So he says, that's fully in the hands of the people. However, certain events have been seen as just that while they are serving another purpose. Right? So things that we might think are population reduction are actually serving a different purpose. So he says it's a misconception in many cases. Just because it comes across like population reduction does not mean it is exactly that. Really, if the goal was population reduction, it would have been done a long time ago in a span of a few weeks. Right? So to claim that means these people have power. The power that's available through them is big, isn't it? If they could do that in a couple of weeks, which they could, couldn't they? Well, everybody goes to sleep at night time. Say night gas, or we're flying aircraft, they're drones even, they're not making noise. You sit, you're finished. But you know what I'm saying? He's right in that, you know? If we allocate these bloodlines this huge power, in fact, the opposite is more true in most areas on the planet. Most areas on the planet. So he's saying it's the opposite of population reduction in most areas on this planet. Interesting. What you said could happen, but it will be done by the ones who control the lower areas. The ones up higher do it through the daily items you consume. Right. Just give us a sec. I need a drink. Sorry. Okay. Well. So, question, was Yahweh an extraterrestrial negative entity, or was he a fiction invented by the Jewish fantasy factory during the time of the Greeks ruled Palestine? Answer, if the name of an entity is public, it means it's fabricated. Yahweh used to represent an age where mass control was taking shape. Question, so the Mormons are the only ones who are barking up the right tree, authority and all that? His answer is no. Question, don't you get sick and tired of the lack of real quality in the music and movies? With your power, money, influence, why do you not prime the pump up with some really good stuff? 2, what are the 3 kings that have you concerned about most regarding the upsetting of the apple cart? 3, who owns and runs the show on planet Earth? Please list the major players groups who actually answer to each successive level, beginning from the top down. Descriptions are fine if you don't want to divulge names. It's like a pyramid, or is it a number of factions vying for power and control? What is the real story on the Greys, and why is there still majority of players currently? What do you fear the most? What is the real story you haven't told us because we haven't asked yet? He says, the ones who search hard will find the gems in music. In fact, they are all out in the open. It is not our duty to enlighten you. That is yours. We hand out the tools that can be used in the way you choose to, good or bad. So Jay-Z, Lady Gaga, they're using music for bad. Can you see? The tools. A gun is a tool. It's neither good or bad. It's the person or mind using that gun for which end. Everything's neutral. It's just a tool. I think that's what he's trying to get across. And music is exactly that. It's a tool. And you can use that to create good or bring out higher frequencies in people, or you can degenerate and push them down into the lower frequencies. and it's a hell of a potent weapon. Nothing to do with us, but with the puppets. So, which one's that? Oh, that's number 2. So the second question was, what are the 3 things that have you concerned most about regarding the upsetting of the apple cart? And he just says, nothing to do with us, but with the puppets. 3, the shape of a pyramid, yes, but people forgot the underground chamber, which was who owns and runs the show on planet Earth. So the structure is pyramidal, but the people have forgot the underground chamber. And the top of the pyramid is not the top. Fear is based on physical impulses. The physical is not important. Okay, that's very important when you try to consider the freeing of your soul, your spirit, from the dictate of the material body that you're in, whose main impulse is for self-protection. That gets in the way. And the mechanic that brings all that to fruition is fear. So if you haven't conquered fear, you are 100% a slave to your genetic programming and your own character traits that you've built to deal with situations as you've been afraid since you were a child. What's he say here? So she boasts about her line is going back to Charlemagne, blah, 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 blah. He says, I have explained it a bit. Your lineage is not what you think it is. Charlemagne, like other kings, merely played the flute, like his descendants do now in politics especially. However, if there are traces of the lineage within you, and this goes deeper than just blood and genes as you know, then obviously you will understand your surroundings better than others. There are people who are directly linked and they will act differently. Okay, so there is a lot that we do gain from our genetics, but it's not the be all and end all. Especially the more you bring your spirit in command of your genetics, the less what's actually in the genetics is actually going to be controlling what you do. I'll have a look here. The only way to leave this world is, well, it's be who you are. But the thing is, you're supposed to master yourself, aren't you? Master yourself to the point where then you safe for divine law to be revealed, so you can operate according to divine law, and not the nonsense that the copyists do, because they're living under a false dictum given by whatever it is they believe in, they have faith in. In fact, it's terrible, this show. It won't surprise me if they're going to turn this all around onto them that have took it. You can't fly. You can't go into restaurants. You can't do this. You can't do that. Because they're spreading it. Can you imagine that? If that's what they're going to do? Turn it around all of a sudden. Who could you blame then? Let me be absolutely frank, okay? If you've taken it and that happens, who can you blame? Yourself. Nobody else. That's the depth of this. If you don't see the world in that way, you will not get this. If you get what I'm saying. Okay. No worries. Okay. So the question: do you think the current battle is in 2 stages? Now on the etheric, and 1,000 years from now on the astral. Once all the heart people have dropped their physical bodies and have graduated to higher life forms, the next big astral then. The whole show starts all over again with different players. He says, you are confusing a few matters. There is just one struggle, and it is now, here on this planet and on a personal level, meaning you only. There is no enemy you can attack except yourself. The enemy to your Succeeding is the control that the genetic instincts have over you, the desires to set. It doesn't mean you have to pack these things in. You've just got to master them, so they're not controlling you. If you get my saying, you get my drift. Right. If you are busy attacking something else, you are wasting precious energy and you will fail. If you succeed, there will be no struggle anymore. Then you're on your Sabbath, aren't you? You are at the seventh day, not to be counted in days as we know them. You may then rest. Because the struggle is over, but you're still here. But now you're operating to a different set of game, a different game altogether. Because you've proved yourself to be that. Not to a priest, or a vicar, or a pope, or a mullah, or an imam, or a rabbi. You've proved yourself to the divine realm, the heavens, the realm of the Holy Spirit, if you will, as it penetrates all. It's a question. You state that we have tools to work with. Can you tell us some of them? Something to work with so we may free ourselves. Do you agree that we're in a prison planet? I thought more like a zoo where we're being observed and studied. But if we are on a prison planet, then I must understand that we truly have no free will, correct? Thank you. The tools are in your hands, around you, everywhere. It's even being drawn out for you. It is your duty towards yourself to reveal them to yourself and then do as you please with them. There is always a consequence. So again, if you're going to play the game real, you've got to set yourself off with your actions are going to create consequences. Are you prepared to take them? Just like the criminals. Some guys make that decision. I want to live this life. I don't want to do 9 to 5. I'm prepared to take the consequences if I get caught. The very thing police people in most cases are that mindset, but they don't have the balls to do that. So they opt for the easy way where they've got the whole gang behind them. Yeah. So if anybody else does that, then to that gang, you're a threat and you'll be treated like a gang. So the balls lie with the criminals. I'm not promoting criminality. I'm just saying in that spiritual decision making. So I think we can see that more fluid today when we look at the police that we have today, because they're all criminal. Because if they're not acting criminal, they're covering it up. Yeah, they're aiding and abetting it. Every time they stand aside of their colleagues kicking the living shit out of some poor public and stand there and stop and shout at other people public, that's aiding and abetting a criminal act. But they're too stupid to see that, you see. Way too stupid. Because in some great, fantastic way, they believe themselves to be doing something great and fantastic and that everybody else is the enemy. Yeah. So they're going to shrivel up into insanity at some point down the line when there becomes too many of those people for them to deal with. And then they'll be scracking their eyeballs out like there's some kind of being bullied, a victim. Come on, grow up. Well, it's not about not participating in the system. The system exists. It's about learning who you are and ensuring that you enforce your standing until you get good enough at it that it can actually have some clout. Because then you're growing. Targeting gangs. Oh, good grief! You're talking about the gang stalkers there. That's a video all on its own because that's huge. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a itchy nose. Right. Question. Thanks for answering my first few questions in your time. I should be asked the question first. Blah, 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 blah. So she says, what you are saying is that the war is within, not without. And you seem to want us to think it is without. Why distract us? What is it they don't want us to accomplish? Freedom. And yes, I remained every day of my suffering. I'm reminded. So, answer, we are neutral and doing our duty, which many times comes across as being negative. If you observe closely, you will see we are merely spreading the tools which can be used by you to free yourself or change yourself. Your choice. The divine law has a purpose for you, and it's not on this planet. So, hang on. Prove you are worthy again to be released. So this guy's a bloodline, and yet a lot of what he's professing here is a lot of the original church liturgy, isn't it? Born into a sinful place, a planet full of us sinners. So God knows what we've all done in our time to trap ourselves here. But we probably have. And I think there are a lot of people doing it again. So foreskins in your lips. I mean, just consider what that is. You girlies, you're permanently running around with circumcised foreskin in your gob. Anyway, so what's wrong there, ain't it? Let's be honest. Anyway, the distraction is part of that. So that he says, prove you're worthy again to be released, and that the distraction that is being created everywhere, the shit that's in the doctrines, that it's your job to work out what is the shit and what isn't. So you have to show it, and that you can't fool it. You cannot fool the spiritual in anything, because it knows everything. It's watching everything. It's watching you when you have a shit. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're assigned to you. And depending on where you're falling or rising, it'll depend on what kind of energies you've got trying to influence you. So if you're listening to your intuition and not sort of jumping about like a jack in a china box, you're following not necessarily what's coming at you from the physical. You're following your internal spiritual clock, and it's contrary. The more you go into that, the more contrary you look like you're behaving to the numpties who think they're fantastic. So they think you're broken. They think that you need to be fixed. It's quite because it's sad because they get upset about it. You can see it, like family, they'll suffer over it, thinking that he's broken. What can we do? Fucking nothing. You can't do fuck all, you dumb folks. I'm not broken. I'm wide fucking awake. You're born idle and you can't be asked to wake up. That's why you're striking your fucking eyeballs out. Because you want me to be normal like you, so you can feel like you're doing the right thing. Fuck that hunky shit, kids. It don't happen. None of you. You all know that. I ain't broken. Far from it. Anyway, just a bit of a rant there. I said, I don't know where that come from. Now then. The distraction is part of that. It's about knowing who is and who is not. The one who support any of these known faces are failing. So, question. It sounds like you're cautioning Trinity against giving full rein to freedom of speech. So I think Trinity is one of the people that asked the question. He says he may do as he pleases and accept the consequences in the bigger picture. Exactly. We can all do as we please, but there's consequences. Far better to work out what you're going to do before you act to make sure you're doing the best you can as you understand your move. And as I said before, it's very easy to go for the quick fix, but it's far more wise to look for the best outcome. And sometimes that's not necessarily the easiest way for you personally. Yeah. What is your interpretation of the divine law, and how can I make peace with myself? Knowing yourself and where you really are the two most important issues that you should be involved with. It is your task to find out. In fact, if someone gave you the correct answers, it would not mean a thing for you. For you, they would not be attached to you in the way they would if you had found them yourself. Oh, and can I support that fact? That is the most truthful thing, really. You know, some things, yeah, because even, and that's another thing as well. I've read books in the past that are telling you the answer, but you're not absorbing that. You're fizzing over here. But when you do absorb it, when it comes to you, then you can recognize it in your hindsight. Sometimes it's a flash and it comes back. So he's right. I could sit to you and tell you, let's say, I mean, I'm not saying I haven't mastered fuck all, me. You know, I can roll fags quite well. I'm good at that. I can do building. I can hit things, drums and that, and make noise. But there's a lot of things I haven't mastered, believe me. So yeah, groovy shit there again. Where are we? In fact, you get the correct answer, would mean text. Yeah. If you find the answers to those, you have accomplished a huge part of your duty towards yourself. After that, your task will be living according to the divine law, which is revealed to you after that stage until your departure. However, you can fall off. And I've jumped off quite a few times. Okay. And I'm more than happy to say that. And I'm also happy to know that because I did. I've jumped off this path many times because it just gets too ridiculous sometimes, far beyond your physical mind's comprehension. Anyway, I'll still here. So that's the end of another session. What time are we on? Oh my God, we've nearly done 1.5 hours. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll cut it short at that. So the last. So there's another part to this, probably another hour and a bit. So I think we'll leave that at that for now. But I think profound stuff in there, and it really doesn't play into what most people believe and live by. But I will say this: if you thought that were good, it gets way, way better. It gets really deep in this last phase. So that we don't run on forever and ever, amen. I'll cut that off now, and we'll carry that on maybe next Sunday as a live stream. If you like it, I don't know. You seem to be chit-chatting amongst yourselves, so maybe you're going to watch it again, I don't know. So what are you saying anyway? Yeah, distractions everywhere, isn't it? Everything is a distraction. Well, the world's meant to be fucked, isn't it? It's the earth that's fine. But sometimes the world engages itself on the earth and changes have to be done, like floods and magnetic fields reversing. Sometimes the world does interfere that much that it has to be destroyed, the world. And that sometimes means the earth has to do something drastic in order that the world gets annihilated. Because you're not meant to be in the world. That's for humans and golem and unclean creatures and fear-ridden creatures. It's the world that the DNA instincts creates, all based on fear and survival of itself. So you could say the more that people remain fixed in the genetic suit, the more they are transfixed and fixed into the world, and the bigger the world gets. That makes sense to you? So yeah, many. But that. So what I'll do when this video comes up, I'll put a link to the document, and you can have a look at it yourself anyway. But it gets even better on the third part, so maybe you don't want to read that until next time. Maybe Well, I hope you've enjoyed yourself, having your jollies and what have you. And I'm going to say, Till the next time. Oh, you can't do that, can you? It's mouse. Happy Sunday, chaps.